Hey guys, it's Brigitte with San Diego Seed Company, and today I'm here in the garden and I'm going to talk about one of the tools that we keep in our toolbox for fighting pests in the garden. Specifically, I'm going to talk about diatomaceous earth. It's something we've used on the garden and in the farm, and people have been using it for a really long time. But before I get into all those details, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you're notified anytime we put out a video. Okay, so what is diatomaceous earth and why does it have a crazy name that I never can spell right? Very difficult to spell. Basically, what diatomaceous earth is, it's actually a naturally occurring product from the soil. It's actually ground up silicate, which naturally occurs from the exoskeleton of animals and is in the soil. And it's very rough. If you look at it underneath a microscope, it's actually a very rough consistency. And we use it in the garden because it can actually act like a physical barrier to keep insects off of your precious little seedlings. So for us, what we love to do with it is use it because it's very inexpensive. It always comes in a pretty big bag. You get a lot of it. And it's an organic product that can be handled safely in a garden with kids, pets, or if you have an organic garden, right? The thing that is very important about this product is how you use it. We see all the time across all kinds of different platforms, people who are either using it incorrectly or using the wrong type of diatomaceous earth. That's very important. Make sure that your diatomaceous earth is for the garden. Sometimes it will say food grade, or for this particular brand, it says specifically it's for insects in the garden. What you don't want to use is pool diatomaceous earth. That's totally different, and it probably has some products that maybe you don't want in your vegetable or your flower garden. So what exactly is it? Let's take a look. So it's actually just a very, very fine powder. You can see here, and it's perfectly safe to handle. However, I do recommend with anything that you're using in the garden that you be careful, and that if you're going to handle a lot of this, you can see that it's a very fine powder. You're going to want to wear a mask. Now for us in the garden, we don't use a whole lot of it. It's really used to keep insects off of baby new sprouts or to prep an area prior to direct seeding. So here's a really good example. We've got something that just popped up, and I know in this garden we typically have problems with roly-polies and snails and earwigs and all kinds of things coming in at night and actually coming and crushing our little tiny seedlings. They'll come and they will eat them, and I'll come out the next day and they're just totally mowed down. So what you can do is actually use this around the plants. It doesn't hurt the plants. You can get it on the plants. It's perfectly fine. You're not going to want to cover the plant up with it, but you can use it so that as the insects crawl across this powder, it actually kind of cuts them up a little bit because it's such a rough surface, and it desiccates them. It dries them out and they end up dying. So by doing this, this is a way in which you can protect your baby seedlings so that they can grow up to a size that they can defend themselves. That's a key part of this product. This is not something that you'd want to use all season long for every single insect. It's really for when your seedlings are small and they need an extra little bit of help to survive as they're growing. So you can see over here that this is actually a good example. You can see some of the residue, the powder from when we've used it previously, but I'm not going to continue to apply it because at this point, this squash plant should be big enough and healthy enough and happy enough that it can fight off any insects on its own. Okay, you keep going, buddy, you got it. But these little guys, one little insect can come by and chew this off in the middle of the night, and I would be very disappointed. Another key factor in using diatomaceous earth is if it becomes saturated. If it's right next to your irrigation and it becomes totally wet and saturated, it loses its effectiveness. So you have to reapply it often. And that's as simple as maybe it rained or your irrigation got that area really wet. You would just come in and you would actually just reapply a little more powder around the plants to keep them protected as they are growing. It's fabulous for any small insect. So we're talking ants, roly-polies, earwigs, any little thing that can crawl up to this guy, chomp on its central stem, and just destroy it in the middle of the night. So you can use it after the seedlings pop up, as I showed you over here, but you also can use it beforehand. So here's a good example. We've got some seeds that we planted, and you can tell we planted it really right here in this area. And we actually can put down a little bit of this powder, and I'm just gonna lay it on top. Doesn't have to be perfect, so that it's gonna keep insects off of this area. And as the seedling germinates, it's gonna germinate through that powder. It should be protected enough until it grows up and is big enough and strong enough to fend off insects on its own. So what kind of crops do we want to use this on? It really works well with crops that you're going to direct seed, that are going to be growing in the garden and being exposed to a lot of insects right off the bat, and have a soft central stem. So squash, cucumbers, even beans are very easy for insects to come through and just chew down the middle central stalk and destroy the crop. This works fabulously to defend them from that. Now, if you wanted to use something a little bit stronger, you could use Sluggo Plus. Now, Sluggo Plus is a very different product, but it does defend your crops from the same insects like roly-polies, snails, slugs, pincher bugs. Keep in mind that Sluggo Plus is a much better product than regular Sluggo, because you have the added benefit of not just protecting your crops from slugs, but all of the other insects that I mentioned. Now, where would you not use this? Well, keep in mind, this is a product that is not meant to be consumed, right? So I wouldn't take this powder and put it all over your delicious, perfectly edible leafy greens. And as I say with all of my pest management tactics that I tell people, always ask yourself, if there's a couple little tiny pinholes, who cares? It's nature. The insects are eating a little bit. You should be willing to share. It's not a big deal. But in particular, where this product really thrives is if you're having an issue with seedlings that they just can't even get up to a size to defend themselves. This is our go-to product.